Hey guys, and welcome to Ace Podcast Nation. I'm your host, Sai. On the channel, you can find all sorts of podcasts from mental health to football to wrestling to UFC to MMA to football, anything you like. Movies, TV, films, 3 shows a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, every week. Video for every show at youtube.com/Ace Podcast Nation, and the audio shows at Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, all the usual podcasting apps. One of my favorite shows to record is my unscripted and uncensored show. And I've got one coming up with the current Cage Warriors lightweight champ. He's also just signed with the UFC, which is Modestus Bukasas. I can't pronounce his surname. I'm really sorry, Modestus. We've also got shows, the other unscripted and uncensored shows with, we've had some UFC guys, some footballers, some Cage Warriors guys, Bellator guys, boxers, footballers, and all sorts. There's always a lot of fun because as the title gives away, no script, no censored, just the people sending in the questions and the talking points. Today's show is going to talk about wrestling predominantly, particularly with the Royal Rumble coming up this weekend as we record. So I'm very excited to talk about that with my guest today, who is Fightful.com's lead writer, one of the hardest working guys in wrestling media, a podcaster, and back for his two-time appearance on Ace Podcast Nation. It's Mr. Jeremy Lambert. Welcome, my friend. How are you?
Good. How are you? Appreciate you having me on.
Always a good time, mate. Always a good time. I don't ask everyone back, so, think yourself privileged.
Well, I appreciate that. It was a good time last time, and we got into a lot of mental health stuff last time, which was really fun because I don't get to talk about that too often. But we'll try to stick with strictly wrestling for everybody here today.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to quickly ask you, like, just how's things going with that and stuff. Obviously, if people did see the previous show, they saw kind of what we talked about and all the different ins and outs of both me and you, really.
Yeah, it's going well. Much better place than I was last time. I think last time it was like the 2-year anniversary of when I tried suicide, and so I'd just written about it, and you didn't even know I was going to write about it. I just wrote it, and then you're like, hey, can we talk about this? Like, yeah, sure. And yeah, a much better place now. A lot of that has to do with where I'm at in my work life, things going well there, and then a lot of therapy. Therapy is always good, and so yeah, I'm in a really good spot right now.
That's
How are you
cool.
doing, Sai?
I'm good. I am. I got to say, I was speaking to someone recently. I forget who it was. One of the guests who I'd had on, and we were kind of talking about mental health and stuff and things that we'd been through, and we somehow got onto like T-shirts and stuff for my podcast, and he said that I should get a T-shirt with "Podcasting saved my life" because my mental health has got so much better since April when I started doing this, April last year. Just from I couldn't even tell you why. It was something I wanted to do, and I eventually kind of bit the bullet and did it after putting it off for a long time, and then it's kind of just rolled from there. And yeah, this just helped greatly. I think like talking to people helps, and like obviously, I talk to people about all sorts of stuff. I haven't actually done a specific mental health show actually for probably since before Christmas. So I am due to do one, but I just had so much going on with cage fighters. I just had loads of cage fighters on recently, like a couple of guys from UFC and Cage Warriors and stuff. But I'm just happy to get guests, and they're up for coming, and they're always a good time. They like to chat and talk about stuff, and they're good for the unscripted and uncensored shows because they're not how could you put it? Like like if you spoke to someone from the WWE, for instance, they're all like there's certain subjects they won't touch, there's certain things they wouldn't go into, and they'll kind of toe the company line. Whereas what I found with like fighters is they just don't care. They'll just talk about anything, say anything, which always makes for more natural conversation, but also like when people have cottoned on to that, they just ask about all sorts of random shit, and it's always good. But yeah. Sorry, I went off on a bit of a tangent. But you've launched your own podcast alongside all your writing with my man Joe Hobart,
Yeah,
who also writes for Fightful, which is I really enjoy your podcast actually.
appreciate it. Yeah, the great Joe Hobart. We've done 2 shows. We sort of talk wrestling. It's just kind of a fun banter with Joe. We don't stick to one topic the whole show, but I've been doing podcasting for I don't know how long. Like the days of UFC.
Yeah.
I think my first podcast with my friend was on like 5 ounces of pain, and it was like before the Quentin Jackson and John Jones fight. So
Wow.
that tells you how long ago it was. And so I've always just feel like I've done a podcast ever since then. And now I'm on a good platform with Fightful. And so Joe and I have our own little podcast that everyone can check out on Thursdays on Fightful.
Yeah, and it's good. Who came up with the idea for that? Because you kind of like the general like idea or the consensus is you talk about a certain subject for about 5 minutes and you kind of scoot about a bit.
Yeah, that was mine. I was on the Matt Riddle medicine one night and just messaged Joe, and I was like, "Hey, I got this idea. What do you think?" Joe was into it. Joe and I did the booking TEW series for a couple of episodes, and some personal stuff got in the way. And technologically, I just did not know what I was doing. We lost so much content because I was completely inept at it. But fortunately, Joe and I are both doing a lot better personally, and so I just messaged him, and we've always had good banter on Twitter. So I felt like he would be a good dance partner for a podcast. And again, 2 weeks, but I'm really happy with the content that we've put out so far.
Yeah, it's been real good, and yeah, like Joe's easy to talk to as well, isn't he?
Yeah,
He's a good crack. Like, when he came on here, we had a good chat about stuff. One of the other things we talked about the last time you came on it was just after Eric Bischoff and Paul Heyman were appointed, and we discussed whether they were good appointments. One of them is still there. One of them is
yeah.
not. It kind of feels like Eric Bischoff was in and out of the door real quick.
He certainly was. And when I talked to Bischoff at Starcast, he basically just said like I wasn't there to do creative. And take of that what you will. I'm just like, all right, then what were you there for? Just to oversee things. Like you watch Raw, you see Paul Heyman's fingerprints on the show. You can
Yeah,
tell he has a creative vision for the show. And with Bischoff, you never saw that. And, whether that was he wasn't allowed to do that, whether that was he just wasn't invested enough to do that, depending on the reports you read and what he says. I don't know. The truth might be somewhere in the middle, but I think Heyman's done great things with Raw. SmackDown is I can kind of take or leave most weeks.
yeah. Raw's almost become like what SmackDown used to be, with kind of the young guys and all sorts of variant storylines. But it's very focused. You can see that they're trying to focus on building new stars, which is something that they've needed to do on both Raw and SmackDown for years. And they haven't always done a great job of doing it outside of like a select few. Um, yeah, you never felt like there was never an episode of SmackDown where you looked at it and you thought, "Oh, I can see that Bischoff's been heavily involved in this." There was never one episode where you felt like he was involved. Where, like you say, Paul Heyman, pretty much every week you can see his hands over something or some sort of segment or match or storyline, like the Lana and Rusev stuff, which is
That stuff is,
interesting.
yeah, I don't know if it's good or bad, but it makes me want to watch it. It entertains me on most weeks. And with the Bischoff stuff, people thought he had his fingerprints on the Roman Reigns whodunit storyline, because that's kind of a classic Bischoff trope from the WCW days. And he told us that no, I wasn't involved in that at all. So it's like, all right, I mean, again, whether you believe that or not, it's up to you. That's just what he said.
But like when that started, it could have been good, and they kind of half-heartedly
Yeah.
followed it through, and I feel like that's what hurts WWE's storytelling a lot, is they kind of drop things and don't follow things through. So if you do get invested in anything, you're not always convinced that you're going to see the kind of climax to that story. I do hope that Rusev kind of gets like a bit of a push after this feud, because he's got all the tools, and no matter what they give him and do with him, no matter how stupid they've made him look, he gets over, and the fans like him, and it just feels like by now he should have been like a world champion.
Oh, for sure. I don't know who doesn't like Rusev. Like you said, anything they throw at this guy, he knocks out of the park. You know, he's had to be goofy, he's had to be serious, all in just like this one angle. He's had to portray a lot of different emotions in this angle with Lashley and Lana and now Liv Morgan, and he does it exceptionally every single. When he was on the green screen the other week, like, it's Rusev for Rusev Day. It's like awesome. Yeah, this guy rules. It would be great if he was given a world title run or some type of run, but the belts, to me, like, the belts don't mean as much anymore. Just as long as he's in good storylines and at the top of the card, which I think he is. I mean, he is right now. Like, he's main eventing a lot of weeks, or at least involved in the main event segment. Then he's doing pretty well. It'd be cool if he had a world title run, but the things get passed around so often nowadays. It feels like it almost feels like there's very rarely that instance of this guy earned a world title run. And Kofi Kingston is like the big exception here, but everyone else is just like, all right, it's just kind of your turn with the title.
Yeah, I feel like Bray Wyatt fits into that category a bit, where he kind of deserved it because they've dropped the ball so much with him. And again, he's one of those guys where you look at him and he's got everything you need to be a top guy, and they just didn't seem to be able to put it together from a storyline point of view. They did a lot of good stuff, and then they just wouldn't follow it through again, or they would just do some really hokey stuff which wouldn't come off. Or like, they did this really cool angle. I always remember they did a really cool angle with the Wyatt family where they kidnapped Undertaker and Kane, and it was like the show kind of finished with that, and then it was like, oh, that's cool. That's how you should use the Wyatt family. That's exactly what I want to see. And then Kane and Undertaker turned up the next week as if nothing had happened. And it was just like, oh, well, that was the end of that. And it just kept that sort of undermining of his character happened so much. But I think in some ways, the undermining of his character and them dropping the ball with him made him more popular with fans, if that makes sense. Because they kind of rallied around him a bit.
Yeah. I've cooled on Bray Wyatt personally. I was big into it at SummerSlam, the first appearance of The Fiend. And then it almost felt like too much too soon with this guy can't be hurt. You know, they put it like the Rollins feud didn't work for me. Then they put him with Miz, which not great. The Bryan stuff is good. And Bryan's another one of those guys where you throw that guy in anything and he's going to get it over because he just has that connection and he has that range of emotions that he can pull off anything. But with Bray, yeah, I love the early Wyatt stuff, like kidnapping the Undertaker, Kane, the stuff with John Cena, the stuff with Bryan. The problem was every big match he seemed to lose, and it's like, why should I care about this guy? Like, he keeps telling me he's got the whole world in his hands, and then he loses all the damn time. So what good is he?
Well, you look at it like it looks like potentially they might do that again and have him lose at Mania, rumored to be like lose to Mania to Roman Reigns, which I don't think does anyone any favors, because it's going to hurt the Fiend, because Bray Wyatt's going to lose at WrestleMania again. Never won at WrestleMania. I don't think it's going to help Roman Reigns, because they've kind of got people on side with him, but people really like the Fiend, really like the kind of the gimmick and stuff. There's some aspects of it which, like you just said, that people maybe are a bit unsure about or a bit hot and cold on. But as a general rule, the Fiend is pretty popular. and I can't see the benefit to Roman Reigns beating him at Mania if that's what they go with, because I just feel like it's going to hurt both of them. But well, I suppose we'll have to wait and see on that front. I do like one aspect about the Fiend, which I really enjoy, is that they've been quite consistent in the storytelling, in the effect that it has after he has a feud with different characters and different people. I feel like that's a really clever bit of the storytelling, and it also means if they ever want to turn someone heel or face or change their character, they can just have the Fiend, decimate them or attack them, and they can go to a different brand, or they can be repackaged, or they can do that. It's like an easy out for them.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Like the Miz thing, his babyface run was god awful. One of the worst babyface runs I've seen, honestly. Like from losing to Shane McMahon at every turn, to just not being on television, to the stuff with the Fiend, like nothing hit home for me. Losing to Shane McMahon right out of the gate pretty much killed it dead immediately for me. So I was glad that he turned back heel, and I think using the Fiend thing was a good way to do it. And then Morrison coming back added an extra dimension to that. So I did like that. And then, like you said, Rollins, he turned heel off of the Fiend thing, and they are doing a nice job explaining, like, hey, these are the guys the Fiend beat. Now they're having a change of character here. Like, it is more long-term storytelling that you're not used to. Even Bryan, he went back to the Yes movement because that's what he felt he had to do. So I do like that aspect of the Fiend, and it is, yeah, maybe it's a little bit of an out. Like, hey, we can just turn these guys, get them repackaged just based on what the Fiend is doing. But it also builds towards the aura of the Fiend as well.
Indeed. So sticking partially on the kind of Wyatt family thing, Eric Rowan, what's in the cage?
I have no idea. I hope it's Cat Dog from the Nickelodeon show. That's my guess. I have no idea. Maybe it's Daniel Bryan's hair now, since they were together.
So my idea was they should get the guy who made Bray Wyatt's lantern to make Luke Harper's head, and he should just carry around Luke Harper's head and just like talk through it and act like it's like alive and talking to him. And I feel like that could be quite interesting and quite funny, but also, a bit weird and kind of play into his character. But outside of that, I can't really think of what's going to be in it that won't be just stupid. And that's the problem, isn't it? Now, where like there's nothing which they can really do where you think, oh, okay, that could be quite interesting. It's like if it's like a rat or something, it's just going to be like, oh.
I'm with you. I like the Luke Harper's head idea. They've got to do something like that. I feel like some type of like psychopathic thing like that to really not make this disappointing. Like if it's just some like lizard, animal, snake, whatever, it's just gonna be like, okay, what does this add? What does this do? And they've also dragged it out so long that it's like, get to the reveal already, because you're only setting yourself up for more disappointment by continually dragging it on like this if you don't have something big that you're going to deliver. And maybe they have something. I don't know. Maybe they are going to have Luke Harper's head. Maybe they're going to have Bray Wyatt's head. Maybe they're going to have Braun Strowman's head. I can only think of Wyatt family. Maybe they're going to have The Rock's head, since The Rock beat him in 3 seconds at WrestleMania. Maybe they can do something like that. But I don't have any faith that that's what they're going to do.
No, if it's The Rock's head, hopefully it'll be like Rocky Maivia, or like a really early version of The Rock, which looks nothing like him.
Yeah, the Rock's head with the sunglasses. I want the like cool dressed up Rock with the $500 shirt and everything.
Yeah,
like I realize that wouldn't be on a head, but like that, make him have it wear it as a bandana or something.
Yeah, I just can't see where they're going to go with it, which is a shame, because I feel like Eric Rowan could be a really interesting psychopathic monster type character. I feel like he could have a really good feud with Braun Strowman and I feel like he could be a useful heel character for them in a kind of upper mid card, and then you can kind of, if he's getting over, you can move him up. If he's not, you can just kind of leave him as that kind of gatekeeper heel before people go to the, someone they can beat in a feud before they move up to a title feud or something like that. But I feel like he's got enough potential to do something with, but I just think they don't know what to do with him, if that makes sense.
Well,
And
on the being a psychopath, like, and going back to the Roman Reigns thing, he was the one who tried to murder Roman Reigns. Like,
yeah,
that was the payoff to that whole thing. So we know that he's not afraid to try to kill somebody, to try to kill the biggest star in the company. So if he is like some sort of psychopath that has a severed head or a severed hand or whatever that might be in there, who knows, then it works. Like, it can totally work, and you can portray him as such. Don't turn him into a comedy act off
yeah,
of that.
yeah. And I feel like the severed head thing with, like, if it was, it's particularly if it's Luke Harper, which is his like tag team partner, which is a lot, gone, and there's loads of links there. I feel like you can have aspects of comedy in it without it being like a real like comedy segment, if that makes sense. Which of all the best segments and best promos have got that kind of like that hint of humor sometimes, especially if it's kind of like dark humor or whatnot. But I'd have no confidence that they're going to be able to do that. I have no confidence that they would do that anyway, just as a gimmick, even though I think it would be quite good. You said yourself you think it would be quite interesting and quite cool. I just can't see them doing it.
No. Well, you mentioned that you can do aspects of comedy. I don't know if you've seen the Netflix docu-series. It's a mini thing. Don't F with Cats.
Yeah,
Have you
yeah, I
watched
have,
that?
yeah.
Yeah, like, that thing was fascinating to me, by the way. And like that whole guy, like, he was clearly a psychopathic killer, and like very, I don't know, but if you haven't seen it, everybody go watch it because it rules. But there was like comedy aspects of like everything he was trying to pull off, like trying to be a model and going to these gigs and stuff. Is like, this guy is so over the top and narcissistic that you can't help but laugh. But and recreating movies and stuff. Sorry to spoil everything, but all this stuff. And then, but at the same time, it's like comedy, but he's also like a legit murderer and killer and completely nutso out of his mind. And like, you can do something with that, like that with Luke Harper or with like Eric Rowan potentially. I don't think they're going to, but it is a thing where you can blend comedy and something dark and serious like that. You just have to pull it off in the right way, and WWE not always the best at doing
Yeah, they're not always the best at pulling off comedy, full stop, unfortunately.
that.
And a lot of the comedy which they do pull off is not meant to be comedy. It's normally the stuff which they're trying to portray as serious, but it comes off as comedy to everyone else. But one thing which is normally good is NXT. This Saturday, as we record this, you've got the Worlds Collide kind of takeover type thing. I'm quite excited by it. I really like some of the matches. I just think it's something to watch. It's something interesting. So you've got like an 8-man tag match with Undisputed Era versus Imperium, which to me straight away that's going to be good. Walter's incredible, and then you've got the Undisputed Era, which are really, really over and really entertaining. You looking forward to this little impromptu almost show?
Yeah, there's not a lot of like complete heat behind all of these matches, and they've tried in the last couple of weeks, like the Undisputed Era attacking Imperium to close out the UK Takeover show, building up Ripley and Storm, Balor and Ilja. They've done some promos with them, but like, these are matches that you're not going to see often. If
Yeah,
who knows when you're going to see a lot of these matches ever again. And I think that's the intrigue behind it. And the talent pool is so rich in NXT and NXT UK that the
it's
majority of
crazy,
these
isn't it?
matches are going to be really good as well.
Yeah, it is. The talent is just incredible. Like, if you think of the talent which is not on the card,
Yeah.
it's just unbelievable. But I mean, like, when I saw that Barlow was facing Dragunov, straight away I was like, that's going to be a really good match. There's going to be a proper hard hitting. Finn's going to work like he used to work in Japan and just be, quite aggressive, and how he has been really since he turned heel. And again, the women's match, they've worked together a lot. That's going to be good. And then you've got DIY as well versus Mustache Mountain, which I think probably will open the show. And NXT's got a very good knack of having crazy good tag team matches opening, their specials. Is there anything on that show which you're kind of not looking forward to?
I feel bad that Kaylee Ray and Mia Yim are on the pre-show. I mean, Kaylee Ray's your NXT UK Women's Champion, and you're just sticking her on the pre-show. And on one hand, like if WWE had built pre-shows to mean something, and be like, okay, like this is a reason to tune into the pre-show, but everybody has pretty much come to a consensus that the pre-shows don't matter. And so it makes it feel like this match doesn't matter. You mentioned the DIY and Mustache Mountain match. I can't wait for that. Cannot wait. All four of those guys are awesome. We haven't seen DIY since the Dusty Classic last year when Gargano did the pseudo turn, I guess, but then Ciampa hurt his neck. Ciampa comes back. Gargano gets hurt. Like, I can't wait to see those two together again. And Seven and Bate are awesome. And yeah, I'm with you that that'll probably open the show because they love their tag team matches that open, and that match is going to just be an absolute banger.
Yeah, it's going to rock. I think my argument has always been for the pre-shows is if they built them kind of like the UFC does, where they build up to like a main event of the pre-show, and they had, so like if you've got a 2-hour pre-show, if they had like, say 3 or 4 matches and then a main event, or 3 matches and then a main event, and you build into the show, I feel like that could be of interest to the audience, because I know I'd rather see some of the talent that gets left off pay-per-views and cards in matches on a pre-show over seeing the same video packages that I've already seen a million times, and like Booker T and Renee or whoever talking about the matches later on in the show, which I can take or leave that. Whereas if they gave me some matches, so like on the Rumble card, if you had like some matches with like Apollo Crews versus, I don't know, I try to think of someone now, but like, just 2 really good workers and you could start, if you had regular pre-shows where you worked with that concept, you could build lower card feuds towards those matches, because you'd have pay-per-view matches to settle the feuds. Whereas I feel like WWE has lost the art of lower card feuds. I don't know whether it's just one of those, like, where I remember it more fondly from when I was younger, but like in the Attitude Era, I remember there being feuds all throughout the card. So even like your real lower card guys, they were in feuds with each other. Then you'd have your mid card feuds, and then you'd have your intercontinental title feuds, and then you'd have your title feuds and your McMahon and Austin and stuff like that. Like, I feel like they've lost the art of building the lower card guys in actual meaningful stories and feuds.
Yeah, Ember Moon said the same thing in a recent interview. She was just like, we've lost the ability to tell stories on the lower card. And the example she gives, and one of the best examples out there, is Crash Holly with the weight set.
Yeah.
He carried around the weights. He said he was a heavyweight and all this stuff. And it's like, this is a lower card, maybe mid card gimmick and act, but it's something identifiable. Like, what Crash Holly is, his purpose. You get like, if Sean is listening to this, he'll give me a raise. Humberto Carrillo.
Mm-hmm.
No one knows what this guy is all about. He just shows up, and he's got his dimples, and that's it. What is his purpose? And it's a lot. It's like that with a lot of these lower card guys. It's just, they're there. What are they actually doing? I think they've gotten a little bit better at this to try to give some stuff, some purpose, but it's still, especially in the women's division, like if you're not fighting for that title, you don't feel very meaningful in the women's division on Raw and SmackDown right now. Like what is Charlotte Flair doing right now? Like we're talking about Charlotte Flair, arguably the second biggest star in the women's division, and she's just kind of there right now.
Yeah, they've done that with the women's division specifically for the last few years, where you just like Raw and SmackDown have got like one women's feud each, really, and then you might have a tag team feud if you're lucky. And often they rope in the champions of the brand into the tag team feud anyway, so you don't even get kind of like two feuds on a brand. Yeah, it's frustrating. And what's frustrating about it is there's so many women and men in the WWE who could legit in the lower card or not on TV who could legitimately be very entertaining. You know, you look at like guys like Eric Young and EC3 and all these guys who are not on TV who can be really entertaining and have really good lower card or mid card feuds and storylines. And some of them, you feel like if they were given that opportunity, they'd probably get over really, really well, like Crash Holly did back in the day.
I mean, just look at what R-Truth has done with the 24/7 title. You know, this guy is one of the most entertaining things on the show every week. And I think they've actually dropped the ball with that recently, because this is the way you can get these lower card people on there and just do like segments. Like they did a really good job early with the 24/7 title of posting stuff on social media, whether it was the Jinder Mahal winning it on the tarmac or R-Truth pinning him on the plane, the Drake Maverick wedding stuff. Like a lot of this stuff didn't always make the television product, but it was always on YouTube, and it did huge YouTube numbers for the company. And now it's been reduced to Raw, and like it's 24/7. Why is it only defended on one show? I don't understand that at all. Like R-Truth, Mojo, whoever's holding it, they should be showing up every single show, every single week. Raw, SmackDown, NXT UK. I realize this might cost the company a little bit of extra money. I think they can afford it at the moment. But like they should be there, and they should help get those guys who aren't on TV, just get them on TV. And, you know, when this stuff first started, the big thing was everyone was really happy with it because they were allowed to just kind of do their own thing. Like they didn't have like the stuff that R-Truth and Maverick and Matt Hardy and all these guys were pitching. They were just allowed to do it. They didn't have a bunch of writers for them and stuff. It was just, hey, go out there, do it, make it entertaining. And that's what they could do. And now like they're not even doing that with the title. So I think they could do more with that title of just making it, you know, help getting guys on TV, help just making entertaining segments, help boost the YouTube. Like there's so many things you can do with that title.
Yeah, big time. I quite like the idea now that they've given it to Mojo, and I like his kind of persona of saying, I'm not going to run, I'll fight anyone. And I like that as like a bit of a twist on it to something different to just having, because all they've done with it since those early segments were stopped is they just occasionally have a load of people run through at the end of a match or during a match. It's like, it's not very creative. It's just like a load of people who are not on TV running after the champion. So I quite like Mojo. I wish they would do something with Mojo, because he's, again, a guy who can be very entertaining. He can speak on the mic. He can work. And I quite like the twist on it just by him saying, I'm not going to run, you know, and see where they go with that. But, you know, as we've said several times already, you wouldn't hold your breath that they will do anything too creative with it, shall we say.
Yeah, have Mojo show up on SmackDown. Like, if he's not going to run from anybody, just show up on SmackDown and be like, I'm here. Come after me. Come after my title.
Yep, absolutely. Show up on NXT. That would be just something different. So what you mentioned just there was Matt Hardy. Have you been watching the free the delete stuff?
Yeah. Matt's one of those guys who creatively, he is one of like just a genius. I don't want to throw that term around, but in wrestling terms, I do feel like he is a genius with just everything that he has created throughout his whole career. Like he's always kind of done some reinvention stuff, and some of it has stuck, some of it not so much. But like the Broken Universe stuff was amazing, and it's what got him back in WWE essentially. And then they didn't do anything with it. They were just like, we just want you to be the Hardy Boys. And then Jeff got hurt, and so they couldn't be the Hardy Boys. So Matt got on the shelf, and you know, Matt is. I hope he finds whatever he's looking for when his contract is up in March. You know, wherever that might be. But whoever gets him, just let him be Matt Hardy and just let him utilize his ideas. And I think whoever does get him will allow that to happen.
Yeah, my idea when I was doing my shows with Andrew was just before Christmas.
The man, Andrew Thompson.
Yeah, the dude. He was like a regular show. Would like when I started with Andrew, it was just like, oh yeah, we'll just do a show every now and again, talk some wrestling and whatever. Then we developed to like pay-per-view shows, and now we do a show pretty much every week. So there we go. It's just about, but we get on really well. So we just have a load of fun, just talking wrestling and stuff. So shout out to my man Andy T. But
Yes.
So my idea when I was talking to him was for them to give a way to give Matt Hardy a really good send off, assuming he is going to leave in March, which I think everyone kind of is assuming. And you know, WWE is not naive; they are probably well aware that he's going to leave. My idea was that they should have had him feud with the Fiend and do like this big light versus dark, broken versus Fiend thing where they just and have like the last chapter of the Great War and have all this, you know, all this dramatic stuff which he comes up with and all this terminology. And if you think how he could sell that kind of that light versus dark and all the you know, all the words and the kind of phrases that he seems to come up with, I feel like that could have been really entertaining, maybe over Christmas or into early January, maybe just to, you know, tie over like where they had that Miz feud, where it was clearly just a short-term feud to break up the Daniel Bryan match. So they didn't, you know, because they wanted to do it at the Rumble. So they had the Miz do the short feud, and obviously it coincided with wanting to turn the Miz heel, which is fine. But I feel like they could have given Matt a really good send-off with a big feud with the Fiend before the Rumble. But maybe they didn't want him to get hot and then leave. So I can see that as well. But then, you know, the Fiend could have and would have, you know, squashed him and beaten him, you know, but it would have been an entertaining few weeks to do.
I think if they'd done that with Matt, he might have ended up sticking around because the guy
just from creativity, he wants to be used cleverly and creatively.
Exactly.
So here's a question for you, which is really interesting to me. So you've got like Matt Hardy and the Revival, both look potentially like they're going to leave, but they're not leaving because of money or because they want a big push for themselves. It's purely because they want creativity, whether it's the Revival want the tag team title, the tag team division to be creatively satisfying and better booked and you know, an integral part of the show. And Matt Hardy wants to just be, you know, have his creativity utilized and feel as if I feel like he just wants to feel like he's using his brain and using his ideas and stuff. And you know, they're missing a trick by utilizing his wrestling brain, obviously. But it's an interesting time, isn't it? Because, you know, years ago, people left because they either weren't getting a push or they weren't getting the money they wanted. It was not really about creativity or creative satisfaction.
Yeah, with you know, Matt Hardy and the Revival, like they're gonna get money wherever they go. Whether it's AEW, ROH is paying pretty well right now. We've heard reports Impact is paying pretty well. So I don't think money is the issue for them. They want to wrestle, they want to work, and they want to be utilized how they think they should be utilized. They want to put their brain at work because the Revival, they love tag team wrestling. So they just want a good, strong tag team division. And I think that's why, should they leave, they end up in AEW. Matt Hardy, I don't know if he's going to end up in AEW because they have a lot going on. Maybe he'll be the Dark Order leader.
I really hope not. Really hope not.
He could save that whole thing, honestly. Like, if anybody could save that, Matt Hardy could probably save it.
But it could also go against him as well.
Yeah, for sure. But Matt Hardy just wants to utilize his brain creatively. But then you got guys on the other side, like people, everyone predicts it's like doom and gloom for WWE. Everybody's gonna leave. And then you got everybody re-signing these contracts, like Street Profits just re-signed, New Day just re-signed, Miz just re-signed. Who's that?
The Club.
Yeah. The Club just, like, all these guys are re-signing contracts. And the thing is, like, I'm sure they want to be creative as well. People are like, oh, well, Kofi's going to resign and, he's going to get buried now because he's never going to win the title again. And he's just going to, be a tag team guy. He's going to throw pancakes, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Like, people forget just the platform WWE has and how that is enough for people. Like, AEW, you're not getting these movie roles that WWE can get you. You're not getting your weekly podcast that WWE is now doing. You're not getting these shows on the network. Like, people are just happy with a lot of that stuff. And, the money is great as well, but WWE gives you such a huge platform to where if you want to go off and do other things, then you can. But some of these guys, they just want to wrestle. Like, the Revival just want to wrestle. Mike Kanellis, he signed a big deal. He thought he was going to be utilized better, and he wasn't. And he's like, well, I want out now because he just wants to wrestle. So it depends on the mindset for a lot of these people. I don't think any company is in a doom or gloom place. No. And the thing with, if you keep signing these talents like AEW, let's say they're going to add, they're reportedly in talks with Lance Archer. They're reportedly signed Brian Cage. Maybe they get the Revival. Maybe they get Matt Hardy. That's going to push some of those other guys down. And then those guys there might get a little frustrated and be like, well, I want to see what else is out there. So it all just creates this, like, competitive environment. And fortunately, there's enough places to work and enough places who could utilize guys like this to where people are going to be satisfied and happy no matter where they end up, I feel like, as far as just as long as they can get out of their contract and be okay. But they're going to be satisfied with their choice.
Yeah, for sure. As long as I get to see the Revival in the NWA once, I'll be happy. Just for a short run, I'll be happy.
I think it'll happen too. If the Revival leave, assuming they leave, I think they will potentially do like a small little indie run that includes like the NWA and some ROH shows, and then they'll eventually end up in AEW because I think they know that's where they can be at their happiest.
Yeah, I think if WWE was clever, they'd sign some really good young tag teams. I feel like, or even just utilize some of the tag teams from NXT and just book the tag division as like an upper card title, which matters. Like do you know what I compare it to? Is like they used to do with the Intercontinental title back in the day. If they had the tag team titles in that slot and on the pay-per-views they were getting 20-25 minutes matches, I feel like the Revival would be happy to stay because they can have their big contracts, and I don't feel like they're like desperate to necessarily get out of there and leave. I just feel like they want to be satisfied that they're not just going to be, the tag division is just not an afterthought all the time. And tag team wrestling, I think, has been proven over the last couple of years with NXT and with AEW. It can be spectacular, and it can be a real unique attraction, which is not like any other wrestling. And that's what I really look at. And I think NXT made me, and funny enough, it was the Revival's run in NXT made me fall back in love with tag team wrestling. Like some of the matches they had on NXT, the Revival versus DIY, and they were just so spectacular and exciting. And I feel like if WWE would utilize that on the main roster or the Raw and SmackDown, I do think that there's a chance they would stay, as opposed to everyone just thinks, oh, they're going to AEW. That's it.
Yeah, they have the tag teams. It's not an issue of not having the tag teams. You look at the SmackDown tag team division right now. You've got the Revival. You've got the New Day. Heavy Machinery's getting over. Miz and Morrison are now there. The Usos are back in the mix. Ziggler and Rude, sure. Ali and Gable were a thing for a couple of weeks. Like you have the talent to put together a strong tag team division. It's just they're not really doing it.
Yep. And then you've got, in NXT, you've got like Undisputed Era, Imperium. I feel, you got the Street Profits on Raw. It's never ending, the talent list they've got. They just don't seem to want to utilize it. So one of the things I wanted to ask you about is it's obviously it's Royal Rumble weekend as we're going to record this. I'm not sure when I'm going to put this out. I might put it out on Saturday actually. So Royal Rumble weekend. If I said to you, like, what's your most memorable moment in the Royal Rumble ever? Like whether it's a pop or like a return or someone winning.
My top one is John Cena's return in 2008 because I didn't see it coming. All the rumors had him out for months. I mean, at least until WrestleMania. And then it's Madison Square Garden as well. Like he just shows up, the music hits, Triple H gives his, shocked face, and he just has that look on his face like, I'm here, I'm back, what are you going to do about it? And I'm a huge Cena fan. Like I've always been a huge Cena fan. You can rip on me if you want, don't care. John Cena's the GOAT. So when he returned, like I watched that in like college, and I remember just going like crazy in my dorm room because I was alone because I'm a loser, and like I was just like, yes, John Cena's back, like this is awesome. And yeah, that's my all-time favorite Rumble moment.
Yeah, that's up there for me. Mine is actually AJ Styles' debut. That was one of those moments where when I was watching it, I'd managed to stay away from the spoilers because I watched it in the morning, like a few hours later. I'd managed to stay away from the spoilers. I knew nothing about the show. I was just watching it, and when the music hit, I was like, don't know who that is. Then it said, like, I'm phenomenal on the thing, and you hear the crowd go nuts. And it was one of those moments where even in the moment, you knew that it was like really special. Like when the Hardys came back at WrestleMania as well, like that pop was so genuine and so pure. It was just, people were just so happy to see like AJ Styles in the WWE finally. That was special for me. And it's like 3 years ago now, which is crazy.
It was 2016, I think. So
yeah.
4 years ago. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Jesus.
I remember that, and I was always a huge AJ fan throughout his early ROH days and throughout Impact, and then on to New Japan. The thing that took away from that moment for me is it was on the same time as the NFC title game, NFL, and my Carolina Panthers were playing. So I was like, my attention was in two different places, and so I just like randomly saw that AJ was on was at the Rumble. I was like, holy, yeah, it's like what, AJ is there? But I was trying to watch the Panthers game, and so, but yeah, that was a great moment as well.
I went back and watched because unbelievably WWE cocked up the camera angle, so they didn't even catch like the screen changing from I Am Phenomenal, which is when the crowd pops, to AJ Styles, and then him coming out. They missed it, so they had to put out this thing on social media saying, "Oh, another angle," and it's like, no, it's the angle which you completely missed. But like they booked AJ Styles strong right out the gate. They like for someone who supposedly hadn't gone there because of his size and because Vince didn't think he was up to it or whatever, the various reasons over the years. They've booked him strong from day one. Even in the Rumble, he had a good showing in the Rumble. He was face to face with Roman Reigns. He teased the Styles Clash on Roman Reigns, and then he beat Cena clean. He beat Reigns. He was WWE champion pretty quickly.
They've done a great job with AJ. Any concerns of they're going to screw this guy up, I think they're alleviated pretty quickly. The loss to Jericho at the first WrestleMania.
Yeah, that was the one, wasn't it?
Yeah, I wasn't like a huge fan of that, but like Jericho's logic is, he shouldn't come in and win right away. It's like, yeah, he probably should. But I've been really impressed with how they've booked AJ and just making him feel like a big deal each and every time out for 4 years now. Like I've never felt like they're not doing right by AJ Styles. I've never felt like this guy is lower than he should be. It always feels like he's a featured player every week and right where he should be.
Yeah, I think the only thing which I think they've dropped the ball on is the club, whereby I feel like because they kept splitting them up and then putting them back together, and I feel like that hurt them. Whereas I feel like if they had had a good run, where that first run with AJ and Gallows and Anderson just turned face, they were looking, the crowd was really getting into them. They were quite funny and it was going well. And then all of a sudden they just moved them in the brand split and split them up. And then they put Finn with Gallows and Anderson for a really short run. They were just starting to get really entertaining. And then they split them up. And it was like, just put all four of them together, give them like a really good run, and they could be a great stable. And I felt sorry for Gallows and Anderson because I do feel like, I don't feel too sorry for them. They've just signed massive contracts and Carl Anderson's living in his mansion with his pool and stuff. But you know what I mean? Like from a storyline perspective, I do feel like they could have, like their first feud with the Usos was really good when they came in and they had some good matches. And I feel like they've never shown what Gallows and Anderson, particularly Carl Anderson, can do in the ring. Like, I feel like Carl Anderson could be a good kind of US champion, or even if he didn't win the title, he could be in the mix for the, for like, if they do like a ladder match for the US title, he'd be a good competitor for that. Or I felt like he could have gone in the cruiserweight, 205 Live as well. I thought he could really show what he could do. I think they had incredible matches on that.
The Cruiserweight Classic.
Badly like advertised and badly branded, but the actual matches were pretty good. And on NXT, the Cruiserweights have been awesome.
Yeah, 205 Live is a death sentence though for anybody now.
But like you could have had him in like a cruiserweight match on Raw, for instance.
Yeah,
and have whoever they're feuding within the tag team screw him over as he's about to win the title, or just ways to like to show people that he's not just AJ Styles or Finn Balor's lackey. Like they've got character and ring ability in their own right. That makes sense.
Yeah, that's another like missed opportunity with just the tag team division. Like they've got the talent to really boost a strong tag team division, and they're not always doing that.
Okay, so to finish off, I would like to do some predictions for the Royal Rumble, but in a minute we'll do them because I wanted to ask you some kind of quick fire questions, if you don't mind, where you just give like a quick answer. It doesn't have to be like a one-word answer, but just like first kind of thing which comes to your head. Tell me 3 things that AEW are doing badly and why.
The women's division, because
it sucks.
Yeah, it's not good. They're putting too much focus on the Nightmare Collective stuff. I don't I have no investment in their women's division. I don't like the power rankings. I think that's a missed opportunity there.
It's not as good as yours. That's why.
Thank you.
That's what it is, though. It's just not as good as the ones that you do compared to this.
I try to do real sports power rankings. I think they could just do more with it, honestly. And some of the production stuff, I'm not like a huge fan of. It kind of, I guess the production / layout of matches, I'm not a huge fan of all the time. So I think that's three things that they're doing poor. The first two, I can really just leave and never comment on again, and I would be happy at the moment. The last one is more of a nitpicking thing.
Mm-hmm. And three things that you think they're doing really well, and why?
The presentation of Cody. Cody is he was my
baby face.
Yeah, he was my wrestler of the year for 2019. Just everything he did connected with me. I loved not so much in ring, but overall performance. I had Cody. Will Ospreay was in ring for me. So Cody, the presentation of Jon Moxley, the presentation of Chris Jericho, the presentation of their like really top guys, those three is good. Maybe not so much Omega and the Bucks sometimes, but those three really good. I like the overall trying to differentiate themselves with, Bash at the Beach they've done. They're doing by the time people listen to this, they'll have done the Jericho Cruise. So they're trying like different settings, and I really enjoy that. And for the most part, I like their angles. Like, I think they're telling good stories for the most part. There's some stuff that doesn't always hit with me, but mostly it connects with me.
Cool. In 60 seconds or less, tell me how you would rescue the Dark Order storyline. Without dropping it.
Oh, Matt Hardy.
Matt Hardy, that's good.
Yeah.
I think that's a fair answer. CM Punk, will he be at the Rumble? Yes or no?
He might be there. I don't think he's going to be in it, though.
No?
No, I don't think he's going to be in the Rumble.
Would he get a bigger pop than the Hardys at WrestleMania and AJ Styles at the 2016 Rumble?
Yes. I think Punk's pop would rival just about anything they've done.
I think only The Rock would get a similar, and I don't even know if he would now because, like, he's been back a couple of times. I cannot think of anyone who would get a bigger pop.
Yeah, that Cult of Personality hits, the crowd's going crazy.
If he comes back for this WrestleMania, say not necessarily this Royal Rumble, who would you feud him with?
Man.
Oh, I tell you what, you can give three choices of who you'd feud him with if you tell me why.
I like Bryan just because it's Punk and Bryan. Punk has even said like he wishes he had that WrestleMania match with Bryan. So I think that makes a lot of sense. Seth Rollins, just because there's something there, and especially Rollins as a heel now is really good. And I think Punk can really cut into him, and Rollins can cut back with their two dynamics. And then the last one, Triple H, so he could just bury him finally because that's what he wants. Yeah,
I think him and Triple H, if they like, they'd have to probably work around some legal jargon and stuff. But I feel like the promos could be sensational. I really do feel like they could take you back to a foregone era. Especially because he's Triple H, he doesn't give a shit because he's basically the boss, and CM Punk doesn't give a shit because he's CM Punk. You feel like those promos could be golden, and if that's the match, that would probably main event, which I think that's the one thing which would get him back more than, he'll get a boatload of money anyway. But I think main event in WrestleMania finally is the one thing he never did. And I do think that's probably grips.
It certainly does, based on past interviews. I don't know where his headspace is nowadays, but
he's back in the bubble now, though, isn't he? And I think it makes it more likely than before. I'd say it's about as definitive as you can get, isn't it?
I don't think he's coming back at the Rumble. I do think he wrestles at WrestleMania.
I do too. I would love to see him win the Rumble. But so, all right, let's move to the Rumble. Move to the Rumble. Have you got a particular favorite Rumble ever? Like one where you think the one that sticks out?
So this is going to be an odd answer that everybody's going to be like, why is this your pick? 1995. And it sticks out because it was the first one that I ever saw. And I was just like, oh, this is a cool little gimmick Royal Rumble thing here. Like, I didn't know what it was. It also, like, that's when I became a Shawn Michaels fan because him
Is
and
that the one
Bulldog
Shawn Michaels won?
Yeah, him and Bulldog
Yeah,
came
that's
in
it.
1 and
Yeah.
2 and lasted to the very end. And I was like, oh, this is like, it's not a good Rumble. Like, I've watched it back. It's not good at all. Like, there's not much to it. And people at that time were essentially like, yeah, everyone kind of knew Michaels was going to win. And that's why they had to make it number 1. So there was some interest
Yeah.
in it. But it's still like, however old I was, I wasn't even 10 yet. Like, 7-year-old me watching that is like, this is the coolest thing ever. So that's like my big Rumble memory is my first one. As far as like 30-year-old me, a big Rumble memory, still 2018, or not 2018, 2008, because that one with the Cena stuff, just the entire story of that was really good. 2004 with He Who Shall Not Be Named winning it was a really good story. 92 is obviously a favorite amongst many, myself included. And the women's Royal Rumble, the first one, was really strong as well.
Yeah, the Shawn Michaels one is my favorite because that's the first time I remember being pissed off about like wrestling, because obviously I was British, and back in those days the British Bulldog was the only British wrestler really, in the WWF, and I really thought he'd won.
I'm trying to get some light in here.
Yeah, okay, that's cool. And I know I really thought he'd won because he chucked Shawn over, and I'm like, yeah, and no, he came back, and yeah, that always will stick out for me because Shawn Michaels and the British Bulldog were my favorite two wrestlers, and I'll take this opportunity to say that the Hart Foundation, when they put the Hart Foundation into the Hall of Fame, they should have put Brian Pillman and the British Bulldog in as well. They should have put that version in. I feel like that was a missed opportunity. Okay, let's finish off with some Rumble predictions. Rumbling. So I've got a card, Fightful.com, written by some jabroni. Oh no, it's not.
It's probably under Fightful staff or somebody.
No, I apologize. It's written by Carlos, who's a real cool dude. Trying to get to come on my podcast. So I was implying that it was written by you, but it wasn't. Damn, he's never going to come on my podcast now.
I'll put in a good word.
Thank you. I appreciate that. He's like, him and Alex are like the only two I think now on my list.
Pawlowski's just gonna yell at you the whole time.
Some of the right. I feel like me and Alex could do like 2 hours of sour graps.
Yeah.
And just slam everything. But the thing is, I sometimes feel like I'm being really negative, but then I just think, no, I just give an honest opinion of what I think of stuff. And there's loads of stuff that I really like. I really like The Fiend. I really like what they're doing with Andrade. I really like Bailey. I really like the Kabuki Warriors and stuff. Daniel Bryan. There's loads of stuff I like, but people sometimes only hear the stuff that you say you don't like. But
definitely.
And I'll always criticize bad storytelling, and WWE has a lot of that. Okay. So we got a WWE United States Championship match. Andrade versus Humberto Carrillo.
I think it's too early to take the title off of Andrade. I hope Andrade wins, and then Sean can be mad that Humberto just lost again.
Yeah, I want Andrade to have a really, really long run as champion. I really want them to cement him. I'd like him to bring back the Open Challenge as well. Like, I'd like him almost to have like a year till this time next year, lose it at the Rumble, win the Rumble, and go into next year's WrestleMania for the title. I feel like he's that talented. and that good. But I don't believe for a second they'll do that because he doesn't speak good enough English, which is a shitty reason. However, if Umberto won, it would be funny to watch Sean's head explode on a podcast. So.
We're making him write the story. If Shonda rarely does news posts anymore, but if Umberto wins, we've voted to make him write that story.
Excellent, good shout. Shorty G versus Sheamus.
Sheamus is probably going to win pretty quickly.
Yeah, and I think that's probably a good match for Sheamus coming back after such a long time out. Like Gable's so good in the ring, isn't he? So it's a good way to protect him and give him a win, but also just with a good worker to make sure he's safe and stuff. I've never been a massive fan of Sheamus. I don't know why. Something doesn't connect with him. He seems like a really genuinely nice person, and he seems like a cool guy, but his character just has never really clicked for me. And I'd really admire his dedication to it, like with the sunblock and making sure he's pasty white. He just doesn't connect for me. I've always thought him and Drew McIntyre would be a good start to like a British stable. If they could get like a good British tag team and have like them and maybe the Coffee Brothers as a tag team or something. I feel like that could have legs, but I don't see them doing that ever.
I wish they would just do more with McIntyre, and maybe this will be his Rumble, but he's been a guy I've been high on for a while, and they just never seem to boost him.
Yeah, doesn't it feel though like over the last few years where it's always been Lesnar, Reigns, Rollins, and Ambrose, and then you've got like your Corbins, your Bray Wyatts, who like filter in and out of the kind of main event feuds. And then you look around at some of the people who and AJ as well. And then you look at guys like Daniel Bryan, you look at Drew McIntyre, guys they could really, Andrade, the guys that they could really do stuff with if they would just push and give it a prolonged push as a champion or in a title feud. And they never quite get around to it. Like Bobby Lashley, why haven't they done him versus Lesnar yet? Like, even if they don't want to beat Lesnar, that as a spectacle and as a feud, if built up right, would be amazing.
I think that's coming this year. I think Lashley and Lesnar's coming this year. That's my bold prediction for 2020.
I do too, because I saw an interesting quote from Bobby Lashley where he basically said, I do all the shitty storylines that they ask me to because I want the Lesnar match. I'm paraphrasing, but that was basically what he said. And I think he even name dropped the sister angle as well. So, yeah, is what it is, I suppose. I'd have to check the source on that though, because I just saw it somewhere, so it could easily be a made up quote as well.
He said things. I mean that's a fair paraphrase. He said things essentially like they want him to show a more range of emotions, so when he gets to the Lesnar match, people will be kind of more invested, and it's not just like two ass kickers going at it. Like they can see what Lashley has gone through with the sisters, with the wedding stuff, and so it adds more to the Lesnar match. I don't know how much of that is true, if he's just trying to justify it in his own head, but that's kind of his overall quote that he was portraying.
But see, to me, that makes zero sense. So just to quickly go off on a tangent again, when they recently did the Becky Lynch where she was losing confidence because Asuka, like, I get what they were trying to do because Asuka's beaten her. I get, and I kind of commend them for trying something different with Becky so she doesn't go stale. But ultimately, people want to see badass Becky from like a year ago where she had blood down her face versus unbeaten Asuka from a couple of years ago who was beating and killing everyone. And they've done a good job of repairing Asuka recently. And it's like, that's what they want to see. They want to see the MMA badass Lesnar who's smashed everyone versus Bobby Lashley when he came in, not Bobby Lashley who's had his sisters and the Lana angle and all that. Do you see what I mean? Like, people want to see the biggest badass versus the biggest badass, not Lana's side piece.
Right. I agree with that. It's just, this is what they're doing with Lashley. They're trying to get him to do different things and trying to show that he's not just a huge badass. Sometimes like Corey Graves kind of ranted about it on his podcast. He's like, just let badasses be badasses. Like, we don't need them to be in these kind of goofy little storylines like this.
Yeah.
But that's what they do.
And then next up, we've got the dog food on a pole match. No, it's a Falls Count Anywhere match. Roman Reigns versus King Corbin.
I think Corbin ends up winning this, and I don't know why you're going to have Reigns take another loss, but I think, spoiler alert, Reigns wins the Rumble. So you have Corbin beat him here, and then you do the match down the line of, well, I beat you 3 times one-on-one. I don't know if it's 3 times, at least twice, assuming he wins here. And then, put your WrestleMania title shot on the line. So you do, like, that's just paint by numbers WWE booking. And that's what I'm expecting.
Yeah, me too. I'm expecting something similar. Becky Lynch versus Asuka.
I'm torn on this. I think Becky wins. I would be ecstatic if Asuka wins.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think they're going to go with Shayna versus Becky at Mania.
I do too.
Which makes me think that Becky's going to win. But I wouldn't be against there being some sort of like shitty finish where Asuka gets a little bit screwed. Even if it's not an interference, but like one of those ones where the shoulder's up, but the ref counts 3 anyway. So they can run it back after Mania and maybe do like in the pay-per-view after Mania, they could do like a triple threat between Shayna, Becky and Asuka or something. I don't really want, but then Asuka's going to be defending the tag team titles, you'd hope, at Mania as well. So hopefully they do something good with the tag team titles. I'm going to go with Becky because I think Becky versus Shayna, they've teased that as the money women's match at Mania. Yeah. Bayley versus Lacey.
I think Bayley wins. I really can't imagine Lacey winning. I think they're doing Bayley and Sasha at Mania.
When do you think she turns? Do you think she does turn, or do you think she just wins the Rumble?
I think it's Elimination Chamber. Like, they got a lot of history at Elimination Chamber. And I think that's when you kind of do the turn. The Elimination Chamber they won the tag team titles there last year. They did the Lion King spot, as I like to call it, a couple of years ago. So they've got some history there, and I think that's the place where you can do the
turn. Okay. The Fiend Bray Wyatt versus Daniel Bryan.
I hope Bryan wins. I think Bray wins.
Disgraceful. I'm absolutely disgusted by that answer. Absolutely disgusted.
Are you not a Daniel Bryan fan?
I am.
Are you just a bigger fan of...
I love Daniel Bryan, but I won't have a word said against The Fiend.
Okay, fair enough.
The man is a creative genius.
Look, I'm not doubting the man's creativity. He's been cooled off since SummerSlam.
Yeah, it's their poor booking.
Yeah.
The Firefly Funhouse segments are still awesome, though.
Yeah.
Okay, Women's Rumble. Who you got?
Based on who's in it, Charlotte, because there's only like
Charlotte
5 women in it right now. I think Shayna Baszler ends up winning it, but they've got 5 women announced for this thing.
Yes, madness. I think that they're going to have a lot of surprises in the women's one by the looks of it. I feel like the last 3 will be, or the last 4 will be Shayna, Charlotte, and Sasha, with one other, like a Trish Stratus or someone, like a legend. They'll be the 4, and then the winner will be Sasha or Shayna, depending on which way they want to do it.
Okay.
If they're going to do the, like what you said with Elimination Chamber, then they'll go with Shayna. If they want to do it as more of a slow burn where Sasha wins it, they both kind of celebrate as if, well, I'm the champ and she's the number 1 contender, no one can touch us, and then it slowly kind of develops into Sasha kind of, nah, I'm taking your title, love. But okay, men's rumble. Oh, this is
I keep
depressing.
coming back to Roman. I think it's Roman. There's possibilities, but ultimately I just keep coming back to Roman.
Do you think it would be a mistake if they have the Roman beat the Fiend? I know you'd want the title off the Fiend, but from Roman's point of view as a character, as a babyface character, do you think it's a mistake for him to beat the Fiend clean at Mania?
I don't think. I think it's a mistake for anybody to beat the Fiend clean right now because the guy's invincible. Like, what's it gonna take? I don't. And this is kind of my problem with the Fiend is they built him to this complete monster that it's going to take a tank. You're going to need Rusev's tank to beat this guy. And like, I'm not going to buy it if Roman hits like 15 Superman punches and 15 spears. Maybe I'll buy it, but at the same time, like, who wants to see all that?
Yeah.
It's just like, that's part of my problem with the Fiend is just his booking, like you mentioned. So would it be a mistake? Yeah. So would it be a mistake if Roman beats him clean? Yeah, probably, because they've just built him in such a way. And then otherwise you're doing like kind of a gimmick match, but this dude survived like falling into electrical equipment and hammers and chairs. Like what's it take to beat this guy?
Yeah, it's they've put themselves in a corner, and I wonder whether they've done it for a reason, so that Braun can take the title off him at some point this year, like after Mania.
Roman should just hit one Superman punch and that be it, and then it should just tell that the Superman punch. Yeah, and then turn heel, sure. But it should just tell that the Superman punch is the most devastating maneuver in all of wrestling history, that the Fiend can survive anything and everything, but one Superman punch lays him out.
Absolutely. Definitely. I think Roman Reigns will win it. I also think that's a mistake for Roman. I feel like Roman can be in a top feud at Mania without winning the Rumble and without having to face the Fiend or Lesnar. I wouldn't be against seeing the Fiend squash Lesnar either, but that's another story. I think I would like to see Drew McIntyre win it.
I'd be fine with that.
If they wanted to really go out of left field and just go with someone no one's expecting, I think that Matt Riddle or Keith Lee would both be good picks.
Yeah, I would love if Matt Riddle, Keith Lee, Drew McIntyre, any of these guys won. I hope
new, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, someone new would be great. Like this is the perfect opportunity to build someone new. I hope that we do see like a Matt Riddle, Brock Lesnar face off, and then
Goldberg.
No Goldberg, no Cain Velasquez. Like I don't want that stuff for Lesnar. Like I want Lesnar against someone new and fresh. I don't.
No, I mean Riddle versus Goldberg.
Oh,
like a face off in the Rumble.
Yes, I'm fine with that. That would be great as well. I don't want Lesnar facing these rehash people at WrestleMania. And I got a feeling that's what we're gonna get. I think Kane is gonna be there, and he's gonna Velasquez, not Big Red Machine, is gonna eliminate Lesnar, and that's gonna set up the Mania match and whatever.
Yeah, I think Riddle's gonna be number 2 in the Rumble. I gotta say.
I hope so. I hope you're right.
That would be a real cool moment. Okay. Jeremy, thank you for joining me, mate. Plug your shit.
Thank you for having me. You can follow me on Twitter at Jeremy Lambert 88. You can check me out on Fightful.com. They're every day writing something. Power rankings, AEW power rankings, real sports, the way they should be done. Yes, the way they should be done. Every Thursday at 5. The Distraction Podcast with the great Joel Hobart every Thursday at, I think we're on at 7. It's only been 1 week in this time slot. I don't have it down completely. Pretty sure it's at 7. But Thursday, I just take over in the afternoon the Fightful main page. And so, yeah, check out Fightful.com. Check out the Ace Nation podcast, Ace Podcast Nation. Always great stuff from side, doing a little bit of everything. And yeah, thanks again for having me, man.
No worries at all. Guys, you can follow me on Twitter at ACEcast_nation, Facebook.com/ACEcastNation. And subscribe on YouTube.com/AcePodcastNation. That's the best way to currently support us. And all audio at all the usual places. You could check out our unscripted and uncensored shows with UFC star Brett John and a guy described by Dana White as the best export out of the UK, Jack Tank Shaw, Bellator's Tom Mearns, Cage Warriors rising star Oban Elliott, as well as many more. And I recently interviewed investigative journalist and author Harry Harris about his book, The Killing of Emiliano Sala, which was a real interesting interview. And as people were very interested in it because lots of people downloaded it and lots of people watched it on YouTube. So check it out with video and audio. There's a lot of new information in that which you maybe didn't know before about the death of Emiliano Sala, footballer of Cardiff City, whose the year anniversary is just passed. Jeremy, top man, thank you. You are always welcome back.
Anytime.
Show.
Anytime.
Top man. Cheers, guys. See you next time.